Well, hey, everybody, thanks for stopping in and watching. This is going to be a great episode. I'll tell you why I'm so excited that finally, for the first time in a long time, I actually get to talk nearly face to face with one of my oldest martial arts friends. To me, he is Grandmaster Darryl Vidal. He's a 10th degree black belt or Hachidan in Kenpo karate. Lives out in Murrieta, California. But to the rest of the movie-going world, and now the Netflix watching world, he is karate semi-finalist in the 1984 original blockbuster hit, The Karate Kid. So Darryl,
Yes,
thanks for
thank you,
joining
Hank.
me.
Thanks for having me.
How are you,
Pleasure.
buddy? It's been a long time since we actually connected. I went to my old email and dug it up. Our first conversation took place on November 26th, 2006.
Oh, that's amazing, Hank. It was funny because after you had said that we would do an interview, I thought back and I don't even think I have that email account anymore. So you must have done some deep digging. And yeah, I mean, I think your fans would like to know that we've actually been, email acquaintances since what you said, 2006.
2006,
And
long time.
yeah, it was before the social media, so it was like emailing back and forth, and just it's great. I'm glad to talk to you finally.
No, I'm glad we connected because over the years, more than a decade now, almost decade and a half,
Yeah,
you and I have had some great conversations about everything from martial arts to politics
yeah,
to just family life, getting to know your family. And you've always had great, kind things to say about Lindy because everybody knows Lindy's a huge part of my life. So I've appreciated our connection
yeah,
and
absolutely.
just,
Myself too.
our conversations, just to pass the time sometimes because, it gets a little crazy out there and you get tied to
Oh,
some of these headlines and
I always say right now it's biblical. And all we need to do is have the water turn red. I mean, everything else has happened, right? We have a
right.
plague, economic problems, and civil
Yeah, no
war.
kidding.
So this is an amazing time. So it's good to see that you're good and that Lindy's doing well, and my family's good and safe. So,
Well, that's what had me concerned when I reached out to you not
sure,
long ago was, I was sitting here working in my home office because COVID-19, I've been teleworking since March 13th.
as have I.
And, I'm just watching the headlines as I've got all my different tabs up on my screen and I'm seeing California's on fire again, the air quality and some of those apocalyptic images. And I'm like, wait a minute, I know people out in California. I
Yeah,
should probably start checking on them and just seeing if they're okay. And I'm like, I wonder if Daryl's okay. I don't know where he is in relation to the fire, but I'm gonna ask
right.
him how he's
Well,
doing. So
there have been some nearby, and the air quality has definitely been affected. But California is a big place, and you have one whole area can be devastated while nothing else is happening. But probably the closest of the recent fires is within an hour of here.
oh
But
geez,
yeah,
that's
but it did affect air quality, and there were several days we had a heat wave that went along with that, and so we have 110-degree heat plus poor air quality, and like I said, it's like the end of the
yeah.
world.
No, it's horrible. Well, I'm from New Mexico, and so what's interesting is anytime there's a fire in California or Arizona, days or weeks later, we get all of that.
Oh
And
yeah,
so,
that's
and
right.
so even just now, like all the stations in Albuquerque, all the weather people are starting to show the radar images, and they're like,
Hmm.
no, that's not rain, that's smoke from California.
Wow, wow.
So yeah, but I'm really glad to hear that you guys are safe.
Yep,
I would hate for anything bad to happen to you guys because of that. So before we get into the big martial arts conversation, and of course, what everybody wants to hear about is the Karate Kid, and they can see my background.
yeah, you have a
Not as
great
cool as
display
your
back there.
background. You have a legit background.
Oh
Mine.
well, Zoom, right?
Yeah, and we'll get into that in a minute. I know everybody wants to hear about the Karate Kid, and of course, I'd love to have a conversation, get your thoughts on the new Cobra Kai series. But I thought we'd just sort of introduce you to everybody. You're, like me, we're both regular guys. We both have daytime jobs. Martial
Yep,
arts is part of our life. But tell us a little bit about your life growing up in California, where you're from, and what are you doing for a career?
sure. Yeah, and just to make the correction, the rank is Judan, which is 10th,
Judon.
yeah, Judan, which is 10th degree.
Thank
But
you. Thank
that's
you for
fine.
that correction. I'm a Korean. I'm a Korean stylist. My
There,
Japanese is I fake it to make it.
that's right. That's okay. No problem. Yeah, so I was a Navy brat born in San Diego,
Ah,
first American citizen of my Filipino father and mother, and I had two older brothers who were born in the Philippines, and we were in San Diego probably until I was 10, and didn't really have much martial arts exposure except for some family that actually did Cali, Screama. And then my oldest brother took a little karate before we moved, and then we moved to a kind of a rural community, a couple hours out of LA, called Chino, which is now a pretty large little town in California.
hmm,
And it was mostly a white and Hispanic neighborhood. I went from San Diego, in an area where everyone was a Filipino kid that had a Filipino dad in the Navy, and then to a mostly white and Hispanic community,
hmm.
where I was the only Asian there.
Oh, wow.
And it was still a good place. It was a great little town, and that's when the Bruce Lee movies and the kung fu movies came about, and of course me and my brothers were particularly my oldest brother. We both really took to watching the karate movies and role playing it and doing fight scenes, and so finally we both started taking karate at the local Parks and Rec department in Chino.
Okay.
And just as little background, I still teach through Parks and Rec because I'm such a
Awesome.
believer in, I'm like you, we have a regular job, so I opted never to really try to own my own dojo as much as offer it through the community, Parks and Rec, and it's been great for me. Sometimes you have to get bumped from the location because they have a band concert, or they close for the summertime, or there's different circumstances like that. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like as long as you have the square footage, and a sensei and some students, you can have a dojo. So yeah, for 31 years now this year, I've been teaching through Murrieta Parks and Rec.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Congratulations on
yeah.
that. So, aside from teaching in Parks and Rec, what's your day job? What do you do for work?
I have an IT background, technical.
Ah,
I mean, it's kind of complicated, but these days I'm a project manager, supporting one of the big school districts out here, and I'm doing a lot of their planning for technology, but it's a lot of it these days is COVID response.
oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
getting students computers and building the infrastructure and doing all the things that it takes to support distance learning and things like that. So yeah, I have a whole career that uh, is really around technology and education. In fact, I don't know if you know, Hank, but I have 7 books published in the subject of
Hmm.
education and technology.
No, I think that's phenomenal. And everyone talks about, there was the phrase early on about essential employee.
Yeah.
That's you.
Well,
That's you right now because, even here in DC, Virginia, Maryland area, there was the big conversation about school's supposed to open its fall now. What are we going to do?
yeah,
And, it's all been online.
yeah.
Everyone's doing it online.
And here we
It's just
are
this,
doing Zoom online.
yeah, exactly,
But,
exactly.
but I think there's an interesting phenomenon. I mean, there's a lot of phenomenon right surrounding this. I think the impact to students for the next several years, we're not going to know. Some students I think take right to it, and others have a real difficulty, with attention, and so the non-contact I think is going to have some long-lasting effects. And I started to, interestingly enough, my job at San Diego Unified, which is one of the largest school districts, is
Mhm.
planning for the COVID. And I said early on is it's never going to be the same. We're
No.
always going to have to be able to accommodate people that are going to be remote forever, and every hybrid between back to how it used to be to how we have it now. So start some school districts were very well prepared because they had already bought computers for every student, and they were taking them home, and they embraced that model early on. Schools that didn't do that were playing catch up, and
Yeah, there's definitely been, school district to county to state to across
Yes.
the nation, regions. Everyone's had varying levels of difficulty. Some have had greater success than others. But what's interesting is I saw a meme the other day floating across social media that's like, guess what? Thanks to COVID-19 and we've been doing online classes, you'll never have another snow day ever again.
Yeah, that's a good one. And it's so true. I mean, the phenomenon I was going to mention was that even though we're tend to be more isolated in our in our environment, we actually have spread we're touching more people, just like you and I right now.
Oh, sure, coast to coast.
Yeah, since there's really no need for bricks and mortar in this new model, then I've been doing more interviews. I've been seeing more people, and the whole idea of synchronous interaction where we're at the same place at the same time. We've all learned that it's not as exclusively the way to do things, and so I was just telling my mom, I took her to lunch when I had to reschedule our meeting, and it was like I actually am working just as hard from home, if not longer, because I'll sit at the computer and do work at night when I would have left, or even after teaching a karate class, I'd come back and return an email. That those things didn't really happen before, so it's had an interesting impact on it.
No, I would agree with you. Again, been teleworking from my home for my Pentagon job since March 13th, Friday the 13th.
Right.
And
I think it's the same for me now that you
right.
mention it. Yeah.
But arguably, I would say that a lot of us have become much more productive. I seem to get a lot more done in the course of an 8 to 10 hour business day, just because I don't have people walking up to my desk and, we call them drive-bys. People come up and, hey, Hank, look, I can see that you're busy, but I need to interrupt you because I really need you to do this for me, which is completely opposite of something I'm working on. So
Yeah.
now I've got to divert attention.
And
So
with you, that could be a guy in a uniform with a real intimidating person, right?
no, that's true. That's true. They got a little bit of rank on their collar. You're like, okay, I guess I'm
Yeah.
dropping this and I'm going to focus on that. But here, if they're messaging me or they're emailing, I can set that aside for a little bit, focus on what I need to do, complete it, and then go take care of them too. And
Yeah.
I found in 6 months of doing this that I tend to get a lot more work done during the
Yeah.
course of the day. So I kind of enjoy it. I, I I miss the teamwork.
Yeah.
I miss the camaraderie with my office mates, but I've appreciated the fact that I just get so much more done.
Yeah.
And because I don't have that crazy hour and a half commute to work,
Yeah.
an hour and a half commute home from work, that's 3 hours out of my day that I can use for something else, usually working out, practicing martial arts downstairs in the basements or something like that. So,
Right.
well, let's talk a little bit about martial arts. Everybody,
Sure.
is tuning in really to hear what we have to say about that. You've been at martial arts a little longer than me.
A little bit, maybe. And
A
there's many
little
many more beyond me, even. So.
bit. Well, that's, Mr. Miyagi says someone always knows more, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
But you mentioned that, you were watching karate movies with your brother and you guys would sort of, do your own thing, reenactments and whatever. And then you started through Parks and Rec. Is there a particular movie or actor or fight scene that you can identify that really sparked your interest, that made you go, aha, that's what I want to do?
Well, I think everyone can guess by the time frame that it was Bruce Lee. It was right during the time that I was, before I started training, it was Bruce Lee, and so he continued to be my main focus through, getting my black belt at the age of 18, and I have to admit, I'm a more humble, quiet person these days, but back then, as I could see my natural ability, I actually thought I might become the next Bruce Lee. So I just had no wherewithal of how to go about making something like that happen.
Sure.
But in Southern California, you think, okay, Hollywood, it's right there. How do you go there, and how do you approach it? And I had no idea. So,
Sure.
so my instructor always, his name is Joe Rosas, he's still around, and he always encouraged me to compete. And it finally dawned on me at some point in that whole thing as I started to, win a lot of tournaments, is that, maybe this is the way that I could do it, is, just making a name for myself in these karate tournaments. And sure enough, the director, who happens to be the director of Rocky, John Amundsen,
Right.
rest his soul, was out scouting, and I had won the kata division. I was getting ready to enter the kumite division, and you know how we're all lined up in our gear. Sure. They walk up to me and he says, "Hey, how'd you like to be in a movie?" I'm like, really? This really happens this way? Of course I want to be in a movie. So, the rest is history. They gave me a phone number to call. I called it. Come to this rehearsal stage in Burbank, and next thing I know, I'm amongst all these actors and people that are legends, right?
Sure.
Director of Rocky, Jerry Weintraub. These actors who I didn't know at all at the time, except for now Ralph and Billy. They're as big as you can, biggest stars as you can be. And Pat Morita, obviously, he was Arnold from Happy Days. So
that's where I knew him from. Absolutely.
And so it's like he's going to be this Miyagi guy. And then, interestingly enough, during the rehearsals, I had also met Fumio Demura, who was already a legend to me.
Oh yes, absolutely. I had all his books.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I still have it. And his side book and his Nunchaku book. And so I already knew who he was. And so here I'm running into him, and we didn't spend a lot of time together, but I got to meet him and Gerald Nakamura, and it's an amazing look back, because for about 25, 30 years after the movie came out, it kind of died down, and I kind of went about my life and, raised my family and 4 kids and all that. So it wasn't really, a major part of my life for a long time. And then it's only when we came into the 30-year anniversary, and social media and all these type of things that started happening, and then people are interested in who am I, and he did the crane kick. No, he didn't. It was Fumio. Yes, he did. Blah blah blah. There was nothing to substantiate that. I don't know if you know that, but it was kind of an obscure trivia that nobody knew who that was.
Yeah.
And so finally, when the 20-year anniversary DVD came out, they had some, back, discussion with the director and Pat and Ralph. And when that scene came on, they said, "Oh yeah, there's Darryl. He's a good guy." And so it was like, hey, I
got
did
some
it.
validation.
That was me.
Got some validation.
20 years later.
Well, I'm gonna read you something that John Avildsen actually wrote about you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's on. And I know you've seen all these, because apparently he recorded everything, like all the rehearsals.
Yeah, he had a giant video camera and the whole thing, and all the rehearsals he would tape. So
yeah, and those are all on YouTube now. And this is what he wrote on one of the posts where you're featured. It says here, in the fall of 1983, I was casting for The Karate Kid. I attended a karate tournament in Los Angeles looking for young martial artists who would bring some authenticity to the movie. My assistant, Randy Sabusawa, said to me, "Come over here and take a look at this guy. He's terrific. His name is Darryl Vidal." Randy was more than right. Darryl Vidal was more than terrific. He was the best martial artist out of all the contestants in the movie. I agree. And Darryl ended up inventing one of the most iconic body movements, certainly one of the top 5 body movements ever of the 20th century. The crane technique. Can you imagine The Karate Kid without the crane kick? Absolutely cannot.
Amazing. Well, I thank you for reading that, because I'm not sure if I've seen that, but it is great to have John pay tribute to that, and yeah, it is amazing. It was funny because my daughter was talking to another person. It was an interview as well. and the guy had asked her, "What's it like being the daughter of a famous famous movie martial artist?" And she says, "Well, I don't know. We never really talked about it at home. It wasn't until I was like 15 years old that I watched the movie."
Yeah.
Thanks, honey.
No, that's really cool.
It is. It's a cool story.
You are definitely, it's been without a doubt proven and testified by John Avildsen, you're the inventor of the crane technique.
Yeah.
And so what a lot of people don't realize is that image behind you of Miyagi on the stumps, that's not Pat Morita, that's Darryl Vidal dressed as Mr. Miyagi.
That's right.
So how did that all come about? And I know this is a question you've been asked 1,000 times,
Yes,
but
okay.
walk us through.
It was funny because I actually recently Ralph Macchio actually did a interview with Rolling Stone. You can find it in his Rolling Stone interview, and he talks about it. And it was the first time I heard his memory of how it all happened. But it's very very much the same that I remember. But I usually don't say that I invented the crane kick because the double jump kick, as you know, martial arts is it's a common thing.
Very common, yeah, sure.
Names for it, but we called it a double jump kick or a pump kick.
Pump kick, yeah.
Yeah, but the hand movements were something that I had to develop, and so if we went back, the writer Robert Mark Kamen was there, and the director. They were telling me about this, and in the script it talks about standing on one leg, and because his leg is injured, so the crane kick becomes an important factor. And in his description, the writer said, "You're going to stand on one leg. Your leg is injured. You're going to jump up. You're going to kick, and then you're going to land on that same leg." And I'm like, "Okay, let's try it." And so we worked on it for a while. In fact, Ron Thomas was also there at the time. And I really couldn't do it. I mean, you can do something, but it didn't look like something,
Right,
good.
right.
So I finally told him, I said, "Look, this is not going to really work. Here's the kick that we should do. It's called double jump kick. This will work. I just have to, after I do the kick, I'll just shift back and lift the leg up again." And then, so they said, "Okay, but all right, you have to do something with your hands now." So there, I said, "Okay, we'll
Gotcha.
do this, and we'll make this movement." And they even said you're going to stand on one leg and your arms will be out to the side. And I can remember saying, "Well, why would you ever do that?"
Right, yeah, because fighting stance, you're
exactly.
We're right in here.
Everything's closed. Cover your ribs. Do everything you can, but of course you don't argue with the director and the writer.
No, of course not.
That was my only objection.
What's interesting to me is when back then, obviously I'm a huge fan of the movie for obvious reasons, but I read the book. They did the novelization of the movie.
Oh, okay.
And so I bought the first two about Karate Kid and Karate Kid 2, and the book is like you're talking about. It's like the screenplay. As it's described in the book, you're standing on one leg, you're going to jump up and kick with that leg and land on that same leg.
Okay, I didn't realize it said that.
Yeah, it does. And so, and I remember, I had the book and I had my VCR, and I'm like, no, that's a double front kick all day. And so I went in the backyard and I'm trying to do it. I'm like, I couldn't do it either. I'm like, yeah. Granted, I was like a white belt at the time, so there's not a lot I could do.
You could do it if you ran. If you took a couple steps, you could do something like that.
Yeah. And what perplexed me about it is Robert Mark Kamen is an old school Goju karate guy.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I was like, and a lot of people don't know that he the wax on, wax off, all those circular motions are very Goju-esque.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He's got a lot of background in different arts.
Yeah.
So Goju is I think his roots, but I know some kung fu styles as well.
You mentioned meeting Demura Sensei. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of his. I finally got to meet him in California 3-4 years ago when I went up to the San Jose area. And I got to spend a couple of days watching him teach seminars. And so I can only imagine what it was like for you back then just watching him, you know, his movements, the way he does things, he's just so magnetic. You can't
Yeah.
help but feel drawn to him and just like, wow, I
Yeah.
can't believe I'm watching this
Well,
living legend.
when you think of martial arts and karate, uh, and you know, try to visual kinesthetic, you know, connection, feel it. He's one of your models in your mind, you know, that type of traditional Japanese structure of it, the movement of it. You know, you can kind of envision Fumio Demuro Sensei. Absolutely.
Yes, yes, no, simply amazing. So I mentioned a little bit about, you know, me being a huge fan of the Karate Kid, and I know I've talked to you about this just sort of, you know, in our emails back and forth, but it really is the reason I got into martial arts. You know,
That's
you know, for
amazing.
you it was Bruce Lee,
Mhm.
and you know, my story, just, you know, a condensed version is, you know, I was bullied as a kid from kindergarten on up. You know, my dad used to give me haircuts, so I had like the shave look going on before it was popular. Now
I
it's
see.
popular.
Right. Yeah.
In 1975, it was not popular, and you know, they would call me Baldy, and they would take my lunchbox. And the first memory I have of watching a martial arts movie was Chuck Norris in Breaker Breaker,
Okay.
where he plays a trucker and his brother, and they're fighting the corrupt cops. And it's a horrible movie, as most of those movies were back then. You know, it was all about the action, and the story was kind of eh.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting watching with my dad and just thinking to myself, you know, if I could do what he does, then I could solve my bully problem. And then, of course, a couple, 3 years later, David Carradine comes on TV with Kung Fu, and I'm in the backyard trying to do all this stuff. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just mimicking what he's doing. And I kept thinking to myself, if I knew how to do this, I could solve my bully problem, because I was
Of course, he
afraid.
didn't know anything either. So.
No, no, he did. The furthest from it. If you ever watch his Tai Chi videos that he produced like in the 90s, oh my God. But I just remember thinking, if I could do those things, I could solve my problem, because I was afraid to get on the bus. I was afraid to go to school. I was just constantly in fear.
Wow.
But I could not relate. What I was seeing on TV, it didn't relate to me, because I thought, well, that's for grown-ups.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first thing. And the second thing was, you know, trying to talk my parents. I'm like, can I get some karate lessons? They're like, no, we're not paying for you to learn to beat up your sisters.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was just always in the back of my mind. I remember checking out a book on Kung Fu from the library when I was in 4th grade, because I was getting pushed around constantly.
Wow.
I never got, like, you know, beat up, knocked down, drag out fight, black eye, you know, nothing like in the Karate Kid. But I remember the night that I went to go and see it at the theater. I was with my buddy Ralph, who's also another longtime friend. And, you know, you get all the way through the movie. And I remember getting to your scene, which, by the way, I'm wearing this in your honor.
All right.
The All Valley Karate Championships of
For
82.
19.
In honor of you whipping many Cobra Kai's butts.
Yeah.
And so, you know, not to get off on a tangent, but when I saw you on screen and you're doing, you know, your aerial kicks, and I was like, that guy's going to beat Johnny, and then Daniel will never have to worry about it again. And then I thought, wait a minute, no, Daniel's going to have to fight him. But
Yeah.
but I remember going home that night, and that movie resonated with me, and I was so excited and pumped about it. Keep in mind, I hadn't started karate classes yet, and I told my parents, I'm like, I will buy your tickets so that we can all go see this movie. You need to see this movie. It's so amazing.
Really?
Yes. Wow. And so I'm 12 years old, but I used to mow lawns and paint houses for money, and wash cars and paint the fence.
Oh, yeah.
And
So
all
you
that.
were all like, I'm already doing it.
And so I actually paid for them to go and see the movie with me the very next night. And we got home, and my dad says, that boy is you. And my mom said, you need to do something just like that kid did. I said, great. So we're paying for my karate lessons? They're like, no, you can pay for your karate lessons, but we'll sign the waiver.
We give you permission.
That's right. As long as you pay for it. And
that's a great story.
somewhere around here, yeah, I think I have an old scrapbook here that my karate teacher sent to me years ago, because we're still in touch. I had two of them. One of them has since passed. The other, Delphine, she's still with us. I've got it here. So, yes, the very first contract I ever signed with the school as a student.
Wow.
I was paying.
You're a saver of things.
She is. She sent this to me.
Oh, okay.
$21.05 a month is what I paid for lessons.
Probably broke you, right?
I had just enough left over.
Yeah, I have a story like that where like I said, we joined through the Chino Parks in Rank.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was $11 a month or something like that. And so for the two of us, and there was one session where my parents didn't have the money, and I talked to my instructor, and he said, "Okay, well, come over here into my yard and move these bricks around and do this manual labor stuff." And,
Sure.
That was part of it.
And to me, teaching through Parks and Rec like you do, and what my teachers did was they just rented a little space in one of the gyms in town, and then later they rented a corner of one of the dance studios in town. Mm-hmm. So they didn't have this huge overhead that commercial school owners have, where they've got a brick and mortar building, they've got vehicles, they've got staff. They have insurances they have to pay. So it was like that. There was, just pay us what you can, when you can. And if you can't, we'll work something out. And what I remember, another story I'll tell, is when I was testing for my yellow belt, I was already working a semi full-time job at a grocery store. And so I couldn't get off work to go take my belt test for my yellow belt. So I had a white belt with 2 yellow stripes on it. And I was like, Sifu, I can't make it to testing day because I have to work. And they said, what's your schedule? And so I gave them a hard copy of my schedule, and they both said, okay, listen, on Thursday from 1 to 2, we will meet you at the dojo and give you your test. And I said, okay, great. And she said, you need a little help with your form. Tangun is the form I was working on. It's the second form in the traditional Taekwondo side of the house. And she says, tell you what, for the next 3 weeks, we'll train on Thursdays from 1 to 2, and then you'll take your test on that 4th Thursday. And I said, okay, great. And we did. We met. They sharpened up my form. We worked on my self-defense. And that 4th Thursday, we did the exam. And at the end of it, I was expecting a bill or, how much, okay, here's your belt, and now you owe us $60 or whatever.
Right.
And so I asked the question, I said, ma'am, what do I owe you for all the private lessons and for the private exam? And she said, one of these days, you're going to be a teacher of martial arts. Do the same for your students and just pass it on. That's what you can do to pay me back.
That's great. That's great.
And so we can get a whole philosophical discussion going on that alone, commercial martial arts versus how you came up and are still teaching martial arts, and how I was commercial, and now I'm doing what you're doing. I'm just teaching privately. I've got a handful of students, and we're doing the Zoom thing, yeah. Which I'm assuming you're doing the same as well.
Yeah, we're out. There's actually a light at the end of the tunnel. I built a Zoom room in my house, which was my gym, and so now it's all set. But I'm actually hearing inklings from the city that maybe in a month or so we'll start to get some access to in-person classes. So yeah, hopefully there's a light at the end of this tunnel.
Yeah, no, I hope so. No, that would be ideal. I know there's a lot of fellow school owners out there that are kind of hurting right now, and they've had to adapt their ways of teaching because a lot of them are not like you and I with a daytime job. This is what they do, and all they do.
I have quite a few friends and acquaintances that run full-time studios, and it's been really tough. I don't even know how they've done it, but God bless them, and I just wish them all the success in the world. Yeah.
All right. So now that we're off on my storytelling tangent there,
okay.
as part of our conversation here, I think folks would love to hear some stories about the making of the original Karate Kid. We talked about you've you fashioned the crane technique for the movie. You stunt doubled as Miyagi on the stump there. If you could pick a story or two that kind of stick out in your mind, that you think people would be interested in or shocked to know about being on the set of the Karate Kid. What do you
I don't
have?
know. I don't know. Shocked to know. There's people. Again, people in Southern California are around the industry. So if you're here, you're going to know somebody who's been in a commercial or who was in a movie. So it's kind of almost cliche out here to if I said, hey, I was in the Karate Kid, you'd come back and say, oh, I was in the Burger King commercial. Did you
Right.
see it? So, but I was a martial artist and not an actor. So getting dumped into that whole situation was mind-boggling. It was something that I couldn't fathom, and the whole concept of being an actor was very foreign to me. So what happened initially was we started to meet in the summertime, and we had scheduled 6 weeks worth of training, and I would train with Pat Johnson and the Cobra Kais.
Right.
And Pat would, I wasn't like the assistant, but since I was already a black belt and these guys were novices, I would help.
Okay.
And at the time, Ron Thomas, who played Bobby Brown, was also a black belt, but he was trying to keep that on the down low.
Gotcha.
He was trying to, get his acting chops built out and not try to showcase his martial arts. But they ended up, him giving a lot of good scenes for martial arts, and Ralph and Pat Morita would be trained separately away from the other guys. So they would have their own style of training, and then Cobra Kai, and it would build their dynamic as a group or a gang or whatever.
Gotcha.
So that was a lot of fun. It was. I wish I would have really looking back. It's one of those things like, wow, that's 37 years ago. I don't really remember.
Yeah.
And there's, if you don't have smartphones, so we couldn't just snap pictures and all this stuff. So there's so many things that I don't really recall. And then somebody will say something like, oh, wow.
That's right. Yeah.
That did
Well,
happen.
I think a lot of people don't realize this, and I'm glad you brought Pat's name up. I've gotten a chance to meet him too. Super guy. But a lot of people don't realize that in the entire movie, as far as martial artists featured doing martial arts moves, it really is only you and Ron Thomas.
Right.
But Pat Johnson, also ninth degree black belt, Tong Soo Do,
Yep.
huge history with Chuck Norris,
Yep.
and a long time history as stunt coordinator on a lot of movies that
Yes.
People probably don't realize, like Ninja Turtles.
Ninja Turtles, yeah.
And Mortal Kombat, stuff like that. So, I always tell people that's not just the head referee, that's Pat Johnson.
Yeah.
He's very important.
He was important. He, Steve McQueen's best friend.
Yep.
And just a great guy. He's still, he's still out around. Doesn't do many public appearances. But anytime that I've been lucky enough to see him, we really bonded during that time. So whenever I would see him, every 10, 15 years, he liked me a lot. We liked each other. So he's very friendly. I wouldn't want to say like another father, but I mean, we did build a really strong bond, and it's an emotional event when we get together. So yeah, great person. Wish the best to him.
No, that's awesome. Of course, my favorite part of the movie is where he says your actual name.
Yeah.
You all right, Vidal? Yeah, I'm okay.
So that I must have mentioned to you that's dubbed, right? That's not me.
Is that no? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
If they used me saying, well, first of all, I didn't say it. They didn't record that. But they would have had to pay me as a speaking actor.
Yeah.
So
of course.
It was just, and then later I was watching and I said, I'm okay. Where'd that come from?
I did not realize that was dubbed by somebody else, but you're right. Yeah, such a common
Yeah,
practice in movies is we don't want to pay full price. Let's bring some intern in who kind of sounds Asian
yeah, well,
and give
yeah,
him
they,
$20 to say, yeah, I'm okay. I didn't realize that.
yeah.
So you talked about you know bonding with Pat Johnson. What about Ron Thomas? Did you guys hit it off pretty well?
Yeah,
Or
yeah. I would say that after the 6 weeks, and he told me that he was a black belt in jiu-jitsu. We kind of had that connection, and then as we started to uh, do the tournament stuff, you know, we would be joking around together because we were watching all these actors, pretend to do karate, and they have their hands up like this.
oh
I
yeah,
think
all kind of
this is
ways.
this is the one
Yeah,
that gets me. Is this? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Ralph doing this. That was the craziest thing. I was like, I've never.
So yeah, Ron and I kind of buddied up on that and got our laughs. But I will tell you that when they were filming it, I was so unconvinced that they could pull that off. But then when you watch the movie, it's like the
Yeah.
cuts, the edits.
Oh sure.
It worked. It worked. I mean, you can still tell who trains and who doesn't, but I think it moves to the background with all the other things going on in the movie.
Oh sure. No, I
So
mean
enjoyable.
even the neighborhood kids, we'd get around the VCR and we watch the movie, and Ron Thomas, his character Bobby Brown, when he takes out Daniel's leg, everyone's like, "Wow, what is that? Is that a dagger kick? But that looks legit." And it's like, no, it's like a flying side kick, but you just come up
Down
and
to the
angle it
knee.
downward.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a legit kick, and so you can tell. It's like, okay, this guy's got
Yeah.
either some natural athleticism, or he actually does do karate. So
Yeah.
that was kind of interesting. Had to be, the reason I've got all this stuff back here is I actually got to spend 3 whole days with Ralph a few years ago, because aside from my day job and aside from martial arts, I work for Awesome Con, which is the Comic Con
Awesome.
in Washington D.C.
Oh, okay.
And I remember when they first announced that Ralph Macchio was going to be one of the celebrity guests. I must have emailed and called and texted everybody I knew at Awesome Con, like, please, I've got to be his handler. I've got to be, you have no
Oh,
idea.
wow.
Here we are 30 some years later, and I've got all the memorabilia. I promise I won't fanboy, I'll take care of him, but it would be my dream to meet him. And so we did. And so over the course,
That's awesome.
that first meeting, I told him, I said, well, I know the inventor of the crane technique. And he goes, you do? And I go, yeah, Darryl Vidal. He's a friend of mine. We've been emailing for years and talking martial arts. And he's like, no kidding. Oh my God, you really do know who he is. And so he had nothing but great things to say about
Oh, wow.
you.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah, I mean, he's always nice to me when I see him.
No, he's phenomenal. And I know that because years later, I think it was last year or year before, he came back to Awesome Con.
Okay.
I was not his handler, but I was just sort of walking by his booth as I'm checking to make sure everyone's got what they need. And he's like, Tank, right? I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. He goes to all these comic cons and does all these
Amazing.
interviews.
Yeah.
And he remembers my name. And he's like, hey, let's get a picture together. And as a matter of fact, I'm wearing this shirt.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, no, that was a phenomenal dream come true. Obviously, I got to meet Billy Zabka finally. Also, super nice guy.
Yep. Very nice.
And my most prized autograph, though, right now is, oops, as I just destroyed my laptop, is this one right here. Just got that in the mail. I think it was yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So
got it up and framed.
It's already framed and up there. That's, ladies and gentlemen, that's my buddy right there, Darryl Vidal, kind enough to send me an autograph from Murrieta, California. Says, if you write, no can defense. This one says all about the balance. And Billy, I had him say, if you recall, his last lines in the movie at the very end, where
you're all right, LaRusso.
Right, he goes, good match. You're all right, LaRusso. So I had him say, good match. You're all right, Manitrez. And then he goes, and so, because you write them on a little Post-it note and you hand it to them, and then they're writing what you want them to write. And he stops, he goes, "You're a karate guy, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So that was a lot of fun.
That's
Of course, I
good.
did the sensei stare down with Marty Cove, who I was
That's
like,
great.
let's do a sensei stare down, sensei to sensei. Let's see what you
Uh,
got.
he's good.
And he was phenomenal about that. I'd love to talk about Pat Morita a little bit
Sure.
because I mean, aside from the crane technique being such a huge thing in pop culture, 36 years later, 36.
Yeah, it's crazy.
People are still doing the crane technique. Even the guy in the movie, Bruce Malmuth, who played the announcer
Yeah.
in the very first few minutes of Karate Kid Part 2, he's like, "Yeah, they'll be talking about that last kick for years.
Yeah. You know
How
what?
prophetic."
It is. It is. In fact, I have a story like that because uh, a couple of years before John Allison passed, I set up a meeting with him to have him sign a couple items that I have.
Uh-huh.
And I said, back when we were doing this, did you have any idea that this would be as big, a phenomenon 30
Yeah.
years later? And he said, not in a million years.
No, and there's no way you can know. I mean, you think you've got a good script, there's good editing, there's good action, good storytelling, and like with any movie, same with Rocky. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone discounted that. Oh, that's a stupid boxing movie. Yet you still see people like me running up and down the
Sure.
Rocky steps in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Same with the crane technique, but you know. Pat Morita, Mr. Miyagi. I mean, you and I know him from Happy Days. That's where I recognized him right off the bat. I'm like, that's
Arnold.
Arnold. But okay, we'll see where this goes. And
Yeah.
and turns out, another iconic character in pop history.
Yeah. I mean,
And regrettably, like one of the members of the cast, I never got to meet. But you got to meet him. You were on set with him. What was
yeah.
that like?
Well, first of all, just a genuinely funny guy. Someone who everything is a joke, and back then you could joke about anything, right?
Yeah.
You could make sexist jokes, you could make racial jokes, and so he was that, and being another Asian, we were probably the two Asians outside of Sensei Demura and other people who were there. We kind of, whenever we were together, he would come and we'd sit next to each other, just say funny things, and we would. So yeah, outside of the fact that he was always gracious and a great person, I don't have a great story to go with it. I think one of my great memories is for my 30th birthday. So this is would have been '93. Some years after, about 9 years after the movie.
Okay.
My wife somehow got a hold of him and had him give me a phone call on my 30th birthday. So I'm at a party, and she said, "Yeah, there's someone on the phone for you, and it's Pat Morita." And it was like, "Oh, do you even remember me?" He goes, "Of course I remember you. How are you?" And he was in Las Vegas for something, and we talked for a little bit. I didn't want to keep him, but just the nicest thing. The nicest.
Oh man, that's got to be a precious memory that you'll carry with you forever. I mean,
it is.
I don't know. Obviously it largely affected you when he died. I mean, it affected me for sure because number one, I was like, man, I never got a chance to meet him, but man, I'm never going to get a chance to see him on the screen again. I mean, how did that affect you?
It was it was losing a friend, and we hadn't been in touch much later on, but every time it comes on television, you watch it, and I don't know if people realize it, but everyone knows every line that he says.
That's true.
And there's so many of those 1 inch. All the power is in 1 inch, or remember balance, and no can defend. Everything he says was a classic line.
Don't know. First time.
First time you, first time me. That's what I mean. We could just riff all day with.
Oh no, never been attacked by tree.
So yeah, it was great great man.
Oh man, that's phenomenal. Again, I can only imagine what it was like to just even spend some time with them
Yeah.
and cultivate those memories that you have now. Speaking of memories, I dug a few things out just to share with you.
You've been busy.
Um, so I don't know. Did your mom ever, did she ever sew, or does your wife
A
sew?
little bit.
Like,
Actually, I sew.
really?
Yeah, my dad used to sew, and so we had a sewing machine, and he taught me how to sew. And
No
so
kidding.
I would sew my, Halloween costumes, but the thing that I learned to really sew was my own boxing equipment.
Really?
I would make pads, hand pads, focus
Yeah.
gloves, heavy bag, fill it with sawdust. Yeah, and then later after I learned more, I could make shirts and pants. So I would make the kids
Wow.
Halloween costumes.
You and I have a lot more in common than I thought, because my mom did the same with me. You know, those, you go to the store and you come in a little envelope, those patterns, right?
Yeah, of course.
And so my mom would make my shirts, and she taught me how to cut those out and pin them to the cloth and where to
Yeah.
cut and then use the sewing machine. But she bought for me, I think that Christmas after Karate Kid came out, they had Simplicity is the name of the company.
Yes. Yes.
And they came out with patterns for the Karate Kid. So they had different types of gis, right?
Right.
And what was cool was inside the pattern envelope, they had all the logos that
Oh.
you could transfer on. And so
Oh, wow.
I traced this,
That is
and
great.
my mom actually made me my first karate gi with that on the back.
That's amazing.
And again, I still hadn't taken karate lessons up to this point. I was just
You were
literally
primed, though. You were
literally
primed.
in the backyard, jumping up and down on a stump. That was my training. And then I would wash cars and stuff like that. And I would quote the movie constantly. So, of course, everybody calls me Hank, but my given name is Henry.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Bruce Malmuth is like, Miyagi Do Karate, I'm like, Henry Do Karate. And so my mom's like, let's make you another uniform. So in 1984, I drew that.
Nice. Henry Do Karate. That's it.
And so she put that on the back of my gi. In that pattern that you get from Simplicity, there's also the pattern for the headband.
Okay.
I forget the actual Japanese name for it. It's not headband. It's a tengui or something like that.
I
But
sure don't know.
she actually made one for me.
Great.
And I sat there with the fabric marker and painted the designs. And of course, these days I have the official licensed one,
Nice.
same as up there that Ralph signed for me. And so I actually do wear this in training. And I think
You
I told
do?
you, well, so funny story. And again, not to make this all about me, but just want to express to you the importance of the movie and what its impact has been on my life. A couple of years ago, I was in a pretty bad motorcycle accident.
Right, you mentioned that.
Broke all the ribs on my left side, broke my left shoulder blade, collapsed one lung and then both. I was resuscitated twice.
Wow.
So 3 birthdays now since I died, came back, and then my original birthday. Blood clots in the legs. I was in pretty bad shape for a while. And being alone in the hospital in the intensive care unit, not a lot of fun.
No.
All I could see on TV was they were doing a Charmed marathon. And I got tired of watching that. And what depressed me even more was 3 days after the accident, somewhere in there, that week after the accident, I had tickets for my daughter Lindy and I to go see the Karate Kid in the local theater, because they were going to premiere the movie, not premiere, but they were going to showcase the movie and then premiere the first 2 episodes of Cobra Kai.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sitting there in the hospital upset because I can't take her to go see the Karate Kid, even though she's seen it thousands of times with me. But we both were so pumped about Cobra Kai. And so I'm in the hospital and I'm just, having my down days, lots of down days, alone, getting depressed. And finally they said Cobra Kai is now streaming on YouTube Red or whatever it
Yeah.
was. And I had my phone with me. And so I flip it open, I subscribe or do the trial offer, because I think that's what everybody did. They did the trial offer, binge watched it, and then cancel. And it was at that moment where I got motivated to start moving forward again, because just seeing all the action, seeing the training, and all those old memories of when I first started training in 1986 came back, and that's what gave me the drive to get myself well again. And so now I'm back to 100% mobility, 100% ability. Still get sore from time to time, but you know, I share that with you to say, you know, in 1984 I was getting bullied. I see this movie, I go take lessons, and it really did cure the bully problem.
Really?
Well, because everybody was like, "Oh God, he's doing karate now. I'm not messing with him anymore."
Plus, you're tall, right?
6 feet.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty tall.
Yeah.
Taller than me.
And so that's literally what happened. They're like, "Oh, he's doing karate now. We're not going to mess with him."
Right.
And I mean, I had a couple of. I never got into a fight, never started a fight, but my martial arts, the reputation prevented it from happening. Because there was one kid, I remember him walking up, he had to walk past my house to get to his house. And he was always with a group of others when he was picking on me. But my dad said, if you ever catch him alone, just go punch him in the nose. And that'll put a stop to everything. And so he comes walking up the street. I go outside to challenge him. I'm like, this ends now. I'm tired of this. You're not going to pick on me ever again. And I took Ralph Macchio's, whatever this is, not a real stance, but I did this. And I think I threw a jab punch, which was like 5 feet away from him. So I had no idea about fighting or distance because, again, hadn't taken formal lessons yet. And the look on his face was just sheer fear and panic. And he ran like a little girl, just ran away. And from then on, he was escorted home by the other bullies. But they all were like, we're not bothering him. He's clearly doing karate, because I took a pose. And then it wasn't until, I don't know, about a year later of me training myself with what I thought was karate based on the movie, I actually stepped into a dojo, and the rest is history. My teachers course corrected me. No, that's horrible technique. This is what you need to do. But
well, you gotta get somewhere, right?
Yeah. So Cobra Kai got me back into it, thankfully, and
that's a great story about that.
Here to tell the tale.
Yeah.
With you. So since we're talking about Cobra Kai, great segue, great transition. I've seen both seasons. I'm assuming you have too.
Of course, yeah, way back in the YouTube days.
Well, what again, as I mentioned, as we started our conversation, what I think about is great about Cobra Kai is this. It's good family viewing, and people our age are now sitting their kids down to watch the original movie first.
Yes.
And then go on to now Netflix and watch Cobra Kai together as a family. And because of that, there's a whole new generation that's being introduced to a young Ralph Macchio, Billy Zabka, Pat Johnson, Pat Morita, and Darryl Vidal. So first we'll talk about the series, and and I'd love to hear your thoughts on what the resurgence has meant to you.
Sure. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed the series, both seasons. We watched it right off the bat. I think what they've done best is played the whole who's really the bad guy thing, right?
Right.
Is what was Daniel really a bully? Is they're fighting their own demons and the conflict both between them within their own as well as with themselves between each other. I think has been really well played. I have to hand it to you to the big three, right?
Sure.
Creators. I think what they've done, which was an absolute coup, while I figure out what it is, but this whole the kick was illegal thing has
Oh
started
yeah.
has started a debate that will never end.
Yeah.
And I even will get in on on it on Facebook or whatever and say, look, I was there. It's legal,
It's legal.
and they'll still go on. They'll continue. That does not
But
settle it by any means.
Pat Johnson awarded the point. It's legal.
Right.
Well, and if you think about it, we'll go back to that tournament for a second here. Think about the move where, sweep the leg, right?
Right.
So Johnny goes out, he sweeps the leg, and then follows with a jump roundhouse kick to
To the face.
Daniel's face.
Yeah.
So
There's
you're
a bunch
telling
of
me,
face shots
yeah,
throughout the whole
there's
tournament.
face shots all over that movie.
Yeah.
Daniel gets punched in the face by Johnny at one point. So, obviously in the semifinals and up, face contact was allowed.
Yeah. I mean, even when Allie tells the rules,
Yeah.
she says, you know, anything above the waist is open. You can kick to the head, neck, kidneys, whatever, and so that's it. That's really the only discussion of it. Now in Cobra Kai 3, I think they did inject some, something about face contact.
Yeah.
But that's in Karate Kid 3. So, and you and I know both old school. Back in the 70s, we didn't have pads, so it was very normal to have some contact. But what I always will tell people in that discussion is, well, it might have been excessive contact because we would call, our rulings out here usually say, if you draw blood, cause a bruise, or his head snaps.
Yeah, the head snap. That's key.
Yeah, you would call a warning. The second would be to penalize a point, and then if it was just, if it was really malicious, you would go ahead and disqualify it.
Yeah.
And that happened a lot. It happened a lot to me. I know I got disqualified a lot about excessive contact, but it wasn't called any time during the tournament, and then to call it on the championship round would have been totally wrong. So, but like I said, I think Hurwitz and gang have really, really nailed it on that one because there's no resolution to the discussion.
No, I thought it was genius that they incorporated that into the episode where Daniel meets Johnny again for the first time in years and years, and Johnny's like, or Ralph or Daniel, his character says, I kicked him in the face.
Kicked him in the face, yeah.
He's like, yeah, it was an illegal kick. And Daniel's like, illegal schmillegal. That's just water on the bridge,
It is. It's hilarious.
But you're right. I think, we've got Johnny who, he's turning to martial arts to get his life back in order again.
Right. He becomes a sentimental favorite, even though he was a bully, and he still has, the hardcore tendencies of Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
You gotta love the guy. So.
Yeah, it's hard not to. He's down on his luck. He, Rocky and the original Karate Kid, very much the underdog story. And here we are again. Johnny is now the underdog, and you just can't help but root for him because you want him to be better. That's the first thing. And the second thing is you want him and Daniel to just, all right, let's be friends now. And they've
I don't know about that.
Well, I'd like to see some resolution, and they teased that in the series so many times. The scene where they're driving in the Challenger and REO Speedwagon's on the radio, and the bar scene where they're both, cyber stalking Allie.
That's right.
Her husband looks like a douche. They go out to eat at a restaurant, and it's Johnny on his date with Miguel's mom, and then Daniel and his wife come in, and they end up kind of bonding there, laughing about a scene that was taken out of the original movie. And I don't know if you know any sort of backstory on this, but there was when I saw it in the theater back in '84, there's a scene where it's Daniel, Johnny, and some blueberry pie.
Yeah, I know of the scene, but I can't remember where I've seen it. And are you saying it was in?
I remember seeing it in the movie when it premiered, and they, it was one of those where you can't leave well enough alone. Daniel puts the pie down, and Johnny sits on it.
Right.
And then he wipes it on Daniel. But that in any DVD that you watch now, or any cable release that you see it on HBO or whatever. That scene's been gone for years.
Right.
I don't know whatever happened to
Yeah.
it, but they talk about it in Cobra Kai.
Right.
In the restaurants,
Right.
he's like, "Ah, and the pie," and it was funny.
Yeah, they just went right past it though. They just left it there as a little Easter egg.
What I thought was interesting, and again, looking at the movies and the series as we do through the eyes of a martial arts guy, the style of fighting that they're showing as Miyagi-Do doesn't look like what Pat choreographed in the original movie. It's a lot of soft movement. It's a lot of push movements and stuff like this. I don't know if you picked up on that in the
Yeah,
tournament.
you know what? I can't say. I don't have a lot of the traditional, Goju or Shirin or even Taekwondo. We're a Kenpo, and
Mm-hmm.
there are some similar moves, but I don't recognize any of it. But I've seen stuff on YouTube where they say, this is a Goju karate kata, or this comes from here.
Yeah.
And so I've seen some of that, but I don't see it, and I don't know. And I think nothing bad about the movie, the show.
Oh,
I love
sure.
the show.
Sure.
But there's nothing that is more glaring is when you have actors who are doing karate that clearly have never sparred.
Yeah.
And so you have these guys, excuse me, a little stuffy nose all of a sudden, who they're coming up the ranks and doing that, but because they're actors, they can't spar, right? They don't want anybody getting hurt,
Right.
and so it comes out in like their stances and the things that they do that clearly these guys have never traded.
Every last one of them.
Right. Every single one of them. So
Yeah,
you can see it right away, whether it's in the wrists or.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I picked up on that right away. I'm like, this is just a bunch of actors playing karate.
Yeah.
And especially, and again, nothing against the show because I love the show. I'll watch it forever.
Very enjoyable.
I mean, it inspired me to, go out and buy the official century issued Cobra Kai gi.
That's great.
And I do wear that when I train by myself downstairs. I throw it on every now and then just for fun.
That's a good gi.
It's actually a really good gi. But the cliffhanger at the end of season 2,
yeah,
it's Miyagi-Do versus what is now Kreese's Cobra Kai again. It's sort of like a high school musical martial arts dancing fight scene in the school. I thought that was just way over the top. And obviously the final scene where the dude goes flying over and now he's in the hospital, possibly paralyzed, whatever. That part I get. The cliffhanger part, yeah, you got to have that. You got to have that tension, that drama to keep people wanting to come back for the next season. Got it. But all the different fights leading up to it in the hallways, I was like, it was a little cringy to me. I don't know. What did you think?
Well, I mean, I know what you're talking about. For me, the lack of respect for the law. You've got Tori with the bracelet with the spikes on it.
Yeah.
What kind of person really would think about hitting somebody like that? And marking their face forever and leaving them out.
I know.
Some of those implications. Boys kicking girls and fighting in the mall. So you have to let some of that go and go.
Yeah, there's little suspension of belief or of reality there. Or my favorite is they have the one adult student, Stingray or whatever his name is. Big chubby dude. Johnny calls him Chubbs, and now he's Stingray. And he's trying to get a job as the school security guy. And he's like walking through the halls, just mopping the floor with these teenagers. I'm like, dude, you'd be in jail for that. There's a little suspension of reality when it comes to some of it. But
there's method to their madness, right? And I keep seeing things about Cobra Kai 3 or season 3 that bigger than anything. The most amazing ending or whatever. So
yeah.
I don't know how you top the high school brawl, but leave it up to them. It's
Yeah, well, I think obviously Allie is going to be a part of this. They tease it early on where, oh, she's a pediatric surgeon,
Right.
and what main character just happens to need a pediatric surgeon right now? That's
Yep.
Miguel Diaz. So I think that's happening. I saw the trailer. Have you seen the trailer for season 3?
Yes, I think I have. Came out
So
a month ago, right?
yeah, so that's I forget the name of the gentleman, the actor who plays Chosen, Yuji, I think.
Yeah, Yuji Akamoto. Yeah.
Clearly he's going to be in season 3
Yeah.
because Daniel's in Okinawa, and they made a big deal about saying, oh, it's actually filmed in Okinawa, not Hawaii.
Right. Right.
So
Well, yeah, you got to figure that's going to happen, and you've got to figure Tamlin will probably be in it because she's still around and still acting. So
yeah, she's in a lot of stuff.
yeah.
She was in that Teen Wolf series is one of the last things I saw her in.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. She's still around. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm disappointed that they're not going to give it to us now. We have to wait to 2021.
I'm sure they're disappointed too, but
yeah,
since it's done and all already.
Yeah. So what about you? What types of projects are you into now? Is there anything you can talk about that you want to pitch or let us know about?
Well, just on social media, I'm very open, as you know, to interact with the fandom because I always say without the fans, we'd only be a bunch of egos. And only now in the last few years have I learned to, open up to the whole thing. And so I'm making appearances now, doing
Cool.
the autographs. So I have a couple events scheduled. In fact, you'll be hearing very quickly something in the East Coast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so just look out for that. I'll make sure you get the information out of it.
Yeah. Let me know so I can help promote it. And if you're here, we definitely need to link up and have some dinner and
we'll see if we can work it out. It seems to be a tight schedule, but
okay.
I just told you that I'm coming out. So
oh, that's awesome. No, I look forward to that.
And then there's another one like that in the UK. I think I might be attending. And then on Facebook you can my page is Vidal Kenpo.
Vidal Kenpo, yep.
Yeah, get me there.
I'll post links to these all down in the comments of this. So anything you want to pitch here.
Instagram, it's Rock Breaker Boy.
Ah, yes. Somebody else who likes to break things. I can relate.
Exactly. It was, looking back, it's like, what a dumb name, but whatever. It's done. What's done is done, right?
That's true. Once you build up your following, you're stuck with it.
And then on Twitter, it's Vidal Kenpo, at Kenpo Vidal. So
at Kenpo Vidal. Okay. Very cool.
So, that's what I'm doing.
I just think it's neat. You've got your own baseball card or your own. This is hilarious. This is awesome.
What's awesome is the fans do that. I didn't come up with that. There's a gentleman out there named Jonathan Hunter. And he's a huge fan, and he made a whole set of cards for everyone in Karate Kid and Cobra Kai. So I contacted him. I said, "Hey, you have a Vidal card?" He goes, "No, but I will." So he knows I'm handing them out though because I printed them. It has a front and back, so I printed them, lined them all up, and cut them out. And,
right on the back here it says Vidal, portrayed by Darryl Vidal. Darryl Vidal is a promising young karate competitor who has his focus set on the top spot of the All Valley Under-18 Karate Championship. Vidal was a beast on the mat, I agree, and none of his competitors could even come close to beating him. His form nor his technique could be matched until he faced off against Johnny Lawrence in the semifinals. Although Vidal wasn't too easy for Johnny to beat, Vidal put up a fight that didn't go unnoticed. Fun fact, in real life, Darryl Vidal is the creator of the crane kick. He doubled for Pat Morita when Mr. Miyagi was performing the crane on the beach. That's just a cool little neat thing for
and
fans
again,
to enjoy it.
Amazing fans that come up with this stuff, and I become the benefactor of it. So I appreciate it, Jonathan.
No, that's phenomenal. That's absolutely phenomenal. Well, again, Darryl, I want to thank you for spending a good chunk of time just reminiscing and talking martial arts and the movies and Karate Kid and Cobra Kai. And
it's good that we finally got time to sit down and chat. So
I think so. I think it was well overdue, long overdue, and it's been a thrill for me to finally just sit down and talk to you. I really appreciate it. I appreciate our friendship.
Yep.
and being in touch over all these years. It's been very meaningful to me. So thank you.
So you gave one of those to Lindy, right?
She hasn't seen this. You just.
Can I edit it?
That'll get done in post. But no, yeah. She'll be here for Christmas, and so I'm gonna do a nice frame and mat job for her and give it to her, and I know she'll appreciate it.
Yeah.
I certainly do. It was a very pleasant surprise when I opened the package. I was like, he thought about Lindy.
Yeah.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, everybody, that's my conversation with Grandmaster Darryl Vidal, good buddy of mine, that you now know a little bit more about, as seen in The Karate Kid, on Netflix and everywhere else that you can catch it. And we hope you've enjoyed our conversation. If you have questions or comments, post them below, and I'll do my best to get some answers for you. Thank you all for watching.
Bye, guys.